What's up, you guys? It's Mike. It's Saturday morning. This is my Saturday morning look. Just wanted to say that there's a moment from 13 minutes to like 30 minutes or so. There's a chunk where the audio slightly changes. It's not that bad. It's just that our microphones gave out. So we're using phone audio there, but it shouldn't be that noticeable or disturbing to your experience. And then after 30 minutes, it goes back into our microphones. It's a 2-hour episode. I love doing this episode. I hope you guys enjoy. Okay. Well, we shall see, won't we? How are you doing today?
Me?
Yes, you.
I'm very good.
Okay, that's it.
I also just noticed all these bracelets. What are these?
Yeah.
What are all these bracelets?
Well, Carolina made them for me for various occasions. So this was our Easter. She made my whole family Easter bracelets with our names.
I want to see Angelo's.
Yeah. She made this one for closing because we just closed my show yesterday.
Uh-huh.
And then she made, this is the very first one we made each other bracelets, our second date.
You made them too?
Yeah, I made her a bracelet.
Okay.
Mine says huevón.
What does that mean?
Spanish for like big balls. And like idiot, kind of like idiot, but also like big balls. And this was
A
my
big
opening
bald idiot?
one. Yeah, and this is my opening bracelet. And then this one was
I like that one.
I got us matching.
I like that
ones.
one. I mean, I like them all, but I like
this
that one.
I made. Well, I bought this one.
Okay.
I bought this one. I got us matching ones. Anyway.
And you're wearing pink socks. This is very good.
Yeah, I got the band. Yeah,
oh, and it's all matching. This is very good. Carolina, I met Carolina. This is Mike's girlfriend. She's very sweet.
Yeah, you met her at the show.
I like this. She's sort of like effeminizing you.
Yeah, well, she's very, crafty.
What does that mean?
Well, she's crap. She has she used to work at Camp. Do you know that store, Camp?
No.
So it's a toy store. It's like a very bougie toy store.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a Columbus Circle location that they shut down, and she stole she stole a 3D printer, and she stole all of these like crafts.
Don't say that publicly.
She's a thief. She's Latina and she's a thief.
Was she was mad at them? That's why she stole it all?
Yeah, but also, whatever. She was like, it's a corporation. That's what she said. So she's like, she just robbed them.
Is it a corporation?
Yeah.
I've never heard
she
of the
robbed
story.
like all this like beads and like all these crafts. Like she has like her
Don't
whole
say
room.
robbed. Say like
Stole. Stole.
Welcome to my backyard.
Yeah, well, it's so nice out. I'm glad. I know it takes like a fucking forever to set up anyway, but I'm glad we did this in person, and it's just so fucking. I was so grateful. So grateful. Like, and it's very like with today's episode leading with love, but like, I was just so grateful for the weather today.
Yeah.
And yesterday was also gorgeous. Yesterday was the eclipse.
Yes, I came out here for a little bit to try. I have to say, that's like one of those. That's like New Year's Eve for me. I don't care. Don't really want to engage. Don't really want to participate. I'm just being honest. It's like not my thing. I get it. I see
communal, cosmic.
Well,
anything fun?
No, but I did come out here by myself. I forget, where was Michael? I don't even know where Michael was, but I came out here by myself. I sat in the chair for a little bit. I'm surprised
Michael he's like ultimate. This is a guy who's tarot cards. Like, can I tell you the funniest Michael story really quick?
Sure.
For fucking New Year's when he was doing tarot card readings.
This year?
Yes.
He didn't tell me this.
Oh, shut the fuck up, Siri. But he was doing tarot card readings.
Okay.
And he was high as shit, and he just went, okay, and he put one down. He goes, wait, no, I don't like that one. He was doing it for something. Like, you're not supposed to do that. It's like, that's not the point of tarot.
It was like the card of death.
He's like, yeah, he put down like the death card. He's like, oh, no, I don't like that
They're
one.
dead now because he didn't tell them the truth.
Yeah, he was just like, no, I don't like that one. No,
Wait,
no.
Where was I for New Year's? Where was I?
You were here. We all partied here.
Was Michael here too? Was I here?
Yes. What is the matter with you?
Mike, listen, let me tell you how bad this is. So bad. What's the memory drug? Like ginkgo biloba. What's the one that helps you with your memory?
Ginkgo biloba.
What's the memory one?
I don't know. That sounds like Sudanese, like
I need a
war
memory
leader.
truck because I don't remember anything. I mean, literally yesterday, Michael and I we watched To Die For, which was actually really good.
To Die For?
Yeah, very young. Joaquin Phoenix must have been 19 years old.
Oh.
Nicole Kidman, incredible cast actually. But anyway, I was like, I really want to see The Father with Anthony Hopkins, and Michael was like, we've seen it. I was like, no, we haven't. I have no memory. I have no memory. Where did we have a New Year's Eve party here?
Yes, we did.
Really?
Why do you think you have no memory of these things?
Gosh, I don't know. Farrell says it's my trauma
Okay.
that I block things out, but I do remember
Okay.
things. But then, like, I know we were here New Year's Eve. Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, we were here. Zach came.
Yes.
There was a few people here. Shayna was here. Rebecca
Yes.
Brinkley. Benton
Yes.
and Courtney came.
Okay.
It's very nice.
It's all coming back.
Well, wait,
It's
before I
all
cut you up,
coming
what were
back
we
to me
talking
now.
about? Speaking of memory, why did I cut you up? We were talking about oh God,
Tarot card. Oh, the eclipse.
the eclipse.
And basically, I understand why it's special. In 2044, maybe I'll be more excited. I don't.
You'll probably be dead.
It's just not really
No.
my cup of tea. Anyway, we're coming to you from the backyard today because it's a
Yes.
beautiful day. It's 73 degrees here in New York City. Welcome to Creative Risk, where we talk about art, entrepreneurialism, and everything in between. Today's episode. Of course, I have like my pad, my clipboard, and my pen, and there's Mike's notes crinkled up. That can show our big differences. Why does it keep doing that?
Apple Watch sucks, by the way. Does your Apple Watch work?
Well, it does, and it never makes noise, but I have it turned off on everything. There's no noises.
But my sensor doesn't. Anyway, whatever.
Today's episode of Creative Risk from my backyard is all about approaching your creative career from a place of love or a place of fear. This is going to be a good one. Here's what's going to be a good one, because I really think that there's so much fear.
My autism.
What is your autism? Oh. That's not your autism, because we've had several instances where your autism hasn't kicked in and then we've been fucked up. No, there's so much love, of course, in this career, but there's also so much fear. I would argue nonstop fear. And so I do think that this has a big tendency to dictate how a lot of people move forward in their careers and subsequently their lives, because our careers can be all consuming. And of course, as you could imagine, approaching your career from a place of love is a much more effective, healthy place to work from than a place of fear. I mean, there might be some good instances of fear, which we might stumble into.
It's kind of a wooby topic, but it's actually, I think, really important because, you know, I don't know. I'll be explicit. I'm gay. No, I'll be explicit. Like, I remember, like, last year, like, I was thinking about it because, like, last year, 2023, you know, if you remember, like, we started off this year, beginning of last year was crazy for us.
I do remember that.
And it's like, so basically what happened was in December of 2022, we were like, we got to scale our strategy.
Right.
And we were like, let's like go really,
hard.
really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And
because was it the e-learning that we were preparing for?
Yeah, but we didn't even know we were going to do e-learning.
Oh, wow.
We didn't even have e-learning. We were just doing the one-on-one consulting.
Right.
And the Creative Startup was like, 24 sessions, whatever.
Yeah.
And so we were like, let's go really hard. And we were like, well, Michael's had a father owns an office building. And we were like, that'll be our office. And like, we'll go live in Connecticut. Like I went and lived with my parents and you were planning on living with Jim. And we were going to basically work 8 hours a day.
Right.
Like at
and
the
to
office.
be clear, partially why that was the case is because while we put a ton of time into this, it obviously isn't our full-time careers.
Right.
And the notion was whatever our effort was in the moment, let's just go hard in order to try to make serious headway.
And I remember there was like one point, and why am I bringing this up in relation to love or fear? Is because although I'm glad that we did that, and it wasn't just it was a practical look. Sometimes fear is you need to operate from fear sometimes,
right.
But that was a fear-based decision in a lot of ways because like we knew it was going to be incredibly difficult, and we are passionate about this bit about artist strategy, obviously, but it was like, let's just go super hard.
Right.
And I mean, last year I worked, I'm just thinking about the amount of, I'm like burnt out from last year.
Really?
Like last year was crazy. I just felt like I was working nonstop, like
Yeah.
10 hours,
Yeah.
12 hours a day, like just go, especially like up until August. And then when I started, and I basically was in place from like August to like now, April 2024. But like, I, so much of that energy was from fear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like now I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, especially now that I have a month before my next contract, and I'm like, I feel like my head's coming above water. You know what I mean? Like for the first time in really like like 2.5 years, because we've been going really hard.
Well,
And
let's define what that is to operate from a place of fear. Just
sure.
for context, and it's a pretty
Yeah.
simple definition. I mean, we have notes that I overly reference and Mike underly references, but my overly reference of this is that essentially it means that you allow fear to dominate your decision making
Right.
and your actions. So I think, for example, I think part of what you're getting at is either fear. I forget why we went so hard. It could have been a fear of money. It could have been, oh, we got to make more money. It could have been a fear of of losing creative time. What do I mean by that? Let me pump this out as quickly as I can
Right.
so that I can
Right.
get to like my creative work,
Right. Sure.
whatever
Right.
that might
Right.
be. So
Right.
fear of whatever. I mean, we're gonna get into a lot of examples of what there are fear, how we approach our careers from a
Well,
place of
and
fear.
it's this, because the next point I made here was, ultimately operating from a place of fear is, it's what's your underlying motivation?
Right.
What's your underlying motivation, and that will subsequently color and influence, as you said, your decision making, but also the story you're telling in your head. Because,
Sure.
like, look,
Sure.
what's really hard with secondary income streams, listen, you and I, we love acting. We want to act.
I just pictured a bomb falling on you.
Why?
Still, that seems
Just like somebody jumps over the fence and just like blasts me.
also why is that so? That's such a crazy thing to say because I just like pictures like poof. Anyway.
Okay,
So
well, that's like your weird. That's like your weird sociopathy. Anyway, so, um, but
we love
like,
acting.
we love acting, and it's like, look, I love artist strategy. I love working with people, but a lot of secondary income streams, they're there to help you
Of
survive.
course.
They're there to help
Of
you
course.
sustain, because you cannot live off acting alone.
Right?
You can't.
You can't. Period.
And
I
so
hope
if you
everyone
can
hears that.
find something you're passionate about, and so look, with artist strategy, it's 50-50 a lot of times. 50% of it, I do it because I love it and I love helping people and I love having these cracking these things open with you, and like it helps me like see my career in a different. It's made my life better. But then a solid 50% of all the work I do for artist strategy is fear based. It's like, oh, I have to have something. I have to do this because I don't have, and which is not false, by the way. So,
But let me ask you a question.
but last year was, before you say that, last year was like 75-25.
Mm.
Last year I was so, except when I was like working with clients, like that was different. But so much of my energy last year around artist strategy was like that, like, okay, I gotta get this up, I gotta get that. And so and it burns you out. You're not operating from a place of passion.
Right.
So it's like you have to look at your motives, and you have to be like, why am I doing this because I find joy in it, because I want to help, because I feel like it's something I've been put here to do, I'm serving something, or because I just have to do it. And not everything is something that we're going to want to do, but how are you spending a majority of your time, I guess?
Well, this is my question because I always think back to our episode. What was it with Nick? I forget which episode.
Right.
6 or something. I don't know what episode
Right.
it was. With Nick Blameyer, when we were talking about the percentage of art leading versus like all the other stuff, the business shit. 51% art to 49% everything else. And I bring this up because this is a question. Could we? And this is kind of the thesis or question that we're posing in this episode. Can everything, even the stuff we don't want to do, stem from a place of love? Even
Sure.
like, so just taking our secondary income streams as an example, even because there's going to be plenty of shit that we don't want to do there. You know, we just finished working with our accountants for our business taxes. I mean, that's not fun. You know, getting our 1099s and K1s out, that's not fun work. But if it can connect back to a place of love, which just to jump to what exactly that means, you know, diving into your career with a passion, a sense of authenticity, and a deep sense of purpose. And you wrote, and I love this, making positive decisions from a place of gratitude. I get to do this. You know, even some of the stuff that is scary that requires us to move quickly. Do you think it's feasible to?
Well, this is what I think the center is, because look, like, we love there's no being on set, being on stage. But here's the thing: is I would even say extending to acting. Like, look, sometimes like the invisible work, the prep work, or whatever, that can be coming from, you know, I could be prepping, as I often have many times, like with an audition, like prepping from a place of fear, as opposed to like, wow,
Totally.
let me get in here and just like surrender and just like get deep, and it's like whatever happens happens. I think that's part of operating from love, is like it's like not holding on to the result too, but I'm skipping. But the question I think that's really the center of this episode is that, can you operate all the business shit,
Right.
the networking, the self-producing,
Right.
financial management,
Right.
other income streams,
Right.
which we do because we have to.
Right.
Look, we would all love to, I'm sure we would all love to an extent not to do those things. Or even if I was like if I was like Tom Cruise and I did just make money acting or whatever, I probably would do all of those things. I probably would still do a lot of those things. A lot of them I would still do. But we do those things mainly out of necessity and not because we want to be business people. And so the question you're posing in this episode is number one, is that true? Are we building businesses out of a place of fear and necessity as opposed to passion and love? And secondly, if we are, how do we change that, I guess?
Right, exactly. Yeah, what's the mindset perspective? Well, I'm going to use a quick recent example I'll share without using too many names in this audition. I'll tell this story because I want to tell two versions of it. So I had two auditions somewhat recently. One was this last week and one was, I don't know, 2 months ago or something. The one 2 months ago was for a project that a show I love. I mean, I love it. It was my first time auditioning for this show. It's a part that I've been waiting to get old enough to do. I'm not going to say what it is, but I was really excited to do it. So working on the material was joyous. I was so prepared. I never had the same amount of time to prepare. I was so prepared. And when I went in, I even surprised myself at how comfortable and confident ease I was. It was such an easy process. I was so proud of it. I was like, wow, this is really good. One last week. It was, first of all, I shouldn't have been afraid because it was a casting director that I had hired myself 12 years ago. I had hired this casting director before. This was a shoe-in for this part. I got to do my own material. I got to pick my own material. And preparing it felt like a bit of a chore. And but felt like a bit of a chore because I won't go into it, but there was a lot of well, maybe I will go into it. There was a lot of fear surrounding this already.
Why was there fear?
This was a theater that someone I care about was interested in, and so there was like some random pressure there. I also felt like I had to prove something to this casting director because they knew me more as a director and an artistic director. So I was a little nervous. And as I was going up the elevator to go into the room, I was getting more and more nervous. And right before I go in, the casting director asked me, they go, hey, are you available for these other set of dates? Makes me more nervous. I go inside the room. There's 3 Broadway stars. I didn't know they were going to be there. 3 Broadway stars, all of whom I grew up to.
People you admire greatly.
Exactly. Next thing I know, I'm fucking terrified. Why do I say this? Because something interesting happened. I went over to the piano. I was singing. I went over to the piano, and right as I was going to tell the pianist what the song's going to do, I had this thought in my head: sing there's another song I'd love to do. And I thought to myself, I should do that one. Place of love versus fear. But I said, no, I have to do this because da-da-da-da. I sing it and I fall apart. completely crumbled. I was off the music. I was off tempo. The final note was a complete disaster. I go to hit it. I told you this. I was like, it was grand knowing you from She Loves Me. So it's like, so it's grand knowing you. I'll be working for your friend. And supposed to go Kodai. I went Kodai, and in the middle of the note I go Kodai. No. But here's really my point. In comparison to the one from 2 months or so ago, where I was so in love with the material, so in love with the prep process. Right. Everything was golden. But my fear dominated, and I completely crumbled.
Well, it's hard. I mean, one thing that you're bringing up that I think is interesting is, you have to read
What?
Flow, or it's called The Zone. It's by the sports psychiatrist Michael Lardon. It's fucking dude. This book is
Michael Arden.
Michael Lardon. Yeah, Michael Arden. Michael Lardon. Dr. Michael Lardon. He is. You know what? Can I say something interesting about that? This off topic, but
yeah.
You prepare. We all know this. You prepare so that you don't have to do anything.
Right. Exactly.
And it's like, I never really got what that means, but no, it really means do nothing. Like,
just trust that your preparation was there.
And because what happens is, he says, when you enter performance, and he's talking about sports, when you enter performance, you cannot prepare for performance. Right. It is impossible to prepare for performance. Right. So you prepare everything so that you can then be in performance and address the unique things that are coming up in performance. For example, that gut feeling you have, that thing. When you are truly prepared, like, you can actually let go of everything else you've done outside of everything. And when I think about it in terms of acting, so beats, fucking objectives, fucking every fucking totally. All of it.
Totally.
Because when you are in the space, there are unique, novel things happening that those are the things that need your attention.
Totally.
Not all the stuff outside of the space.
Yes.
And I say this because why is this kind of related to love and fear before we kind of move on to, okay, how do you know you're operating from fear? I think a lot of it has to do with control, which I didn't realize. A lot of it has to do with control.
Like being out of control is
yes,
what you're afraid of?
Because I think when you're operating from a place of love,
yeah,
you're a little looser, right? Because you're trusting the process a bit more, and you're doing the thing for the sake of doing it. You're not doing it for as much for what you will get out of it.
Sure.
You're doing it to grow. You're doing it to, experience, to add value, to experience, just life and business. Because look, I think business does make life better. You know what I mean? In a lot of ways. And when you are operating from a place of fear, you're focused on the result so much.
Absolutely.
You're gripping the result.
100%. And in our work in particular, and for sports as well, you can have a goal, right. you can want, but if we obsess over the end result, to your point, then it takes us out of the moment, and then it does what it did to me, which was sort of literally physically manifest in that tightening of my throat and a lack of support.
And you can't be, and you're not. Last thing I'll say, sorry, and the reason why that's a good example, because I think about business, you can't be present.
Sure.
Because like the audition is a good example. You can't be present, but even in business, when you're operating from too much fear of like, this thing has got to do this thing for me, and the result of like, I need to get this out of this thing, and this is where it needs to go, and I have to do it for these reasons, and that's the driving motivator. I'm not saying there's not an element of this, but then you can't be present, and you can't be adaptable in your business, and you can't sort of feel out where things are going. I'm not saying you can do too much of that, but there's value in staying present to what is actually happening in your reality with business, as opposed to saying, no, I gotta, it's like banging your head against the wall expecting a different result for a long time.
100%, which is the definition of insanity.
Right. So, okay, what does operating from fear look like?
Yeah, because we have some specifics here, just in a general sense. We'll get specifics into the industry, but we want to start by sort of laying out the difference between operating from a place of fear and operating from a place of love in a general sense. Operating from a place of fear could include avoiding taking risks. So
right.
we stick with what feels known, safe, and familiar.
Well, let me give you an example of that even right now.
Yeah.
This. I changed my professional name to
Mhm.
LABOD,
Right.
which is
Right.
fucking crazy. Now, it's a little crazy.
What you don't know, we should put a picture of this up for those who are watching it. LABOD used to have shoes that said LABOD on
And a
them,
hat. That
and
said
a
LABOD.
hat at high school. LABOD.
And I just booked a project.
Mm-hmm.
And the casting director is a very big casting director,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, "This is like what your name is," but like, I could tell there's judgment.
Right.
And look, there's judgment. People are judging me for it.
Right. Right.
But and this kind of gets to thinking about what other people think. But it's like when I say like, okay, why? Okay, when I want to pull back, be like, no, it's like change it back or whatever, or like, okay, it's like I don't want to take that risk,
Right.
When really, I think changing my name to LABOD, look, it's not going to make I don't think it's going to make a humongous difference in my career, but like. Look, I think first off, I think it's more me. I think it's like bold. I think it's like says something about like. I think it's audacious. I think it's noticeable. I think it'll polarize some
It
people.
says, look at that bod.
Yeah, look at this.
He's having his belly button speak for those of you who are listening.
But like, it's like, and so when you are operating from a place of fear, oh no, what are they going to think? You're not going to take risks.
Absolutely.
You're not going to trust yourself to do things that are bold and audacious. And listen, in this business right now, the only way you're going to break through the noise and stay relevant is by being fucking audacious.
Well, just to be clear, any business ever.
Right, sure.
And this is we see this a lot with artists, especially actors. Actors are really afraid. They're afraid of pissing people off. They're afraid of saying to this. They're
right.
Actors in particular, and therefore they make such safe decisions, not even necessarily creatively, but certainly strategically.
Well, we'll circle back to the next one, but let's just, because you just brought it up. Constant thought of what others think of you. If you're constantly thinking about what they're going to think, or are they going to think I'm blah, 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 and that's the place you're operating from, then that's a fear-based place. Now look, this is a little challenging because there's a healthy balance. Let me give you an example. I don't have updated materials. And I keep thinking about like, what happens when somebody lands on my page or lands on my actor's and they don't see clips? They don't fucking that's problematic. That is problematic, and I do need those things.
Right.
That's not me operating from fear, though. I'm considering the other person.
Right.
From a business perspective, I'm considering my customer.
Right.
And I need it, but that's different than constantly going, oh, they're doing that. I need to do this. I'm not doing enough. I need to push more here, or they're going to think. When you're getting to other people's, you know what the difference is? There's a difference between thinking about what other people are going to think from a business perspective in terms of like, oh, they're not going to think that's professional, or they're going to think I'm this if I'm whatever. Look, to an extent, that's different than, I think, the negative version of that, which is like, oh, I'm less than. They're going to think I'm less than, and I take that personally, and I need to prove something to them. When it becomes about proving things to others, that's when I think it gets into the realm of fear, as opposed to just like being a good business and considering. Like, what's the difference between like considering your customers versus thinking too much about what other people think about you?
Well, I can't remember if I told you this or not, but I put it on our list. I really want to do a whole episode on this. There's a thing called FOPO, fear of people's opinions.
FOPO.
They coined it recently. I was listening to Dan Harris. Do you know who Dan Harris is?
Dan Harris.
He wrote a book called 10% Happier. He used to interesting news correspondent guy who became a big meditator. I've been meditating a lot recently, and he had an episode all about this. And I would argue that this is pretty serious shit right now. Worrying about what people think about us.
Sure.
Whether that's casting, whether that's other creatives. Um, whether it's in comparing ourselves to other people, and I think actually a real epidemic. Um, we, we we hear this all the time in social media. People, we care so much, and by the way, this is a survival instinct. This goes back to when we were pr- truly primal, because if you were kicked out of a group, you couldn't survive.
Right. Sure.
So it's human instinct and human nature
Right.
to want to make sure that we are liked
Right. Sure.
and that we care. But I do think, especially for artists, and look, here's a random example. When it comes to like casting directors, right? Like I'm a big believer, if you really want to be seen for something, make your case for it. But everyone's so afraid of pissing off casting. And I want them to think that and look, there's, of course, there's boundaries and limits to this. Of course. I'm not saying it's like, do whatever the fuck you want. But I am saying that if we are so paralyzed by what other people are going to think about us and how we're going to be perceived, then how the hell can we fucking do anything? It's a real problem, and I want us to really crack this open. To your point, I do think there's a difference between becoming paralyzed and or making decisions based off of what we think other people are going to think, and being strategic, getting feedback, and
Right.
going, how does this actually
Right. And it has to do, I guess, with like I think it has to do with like morals to a lot of extent. Look, I guess because here's what I mean by that. Me updating my resume, or me updating, excuse me, my like clips online, like that's not violating any deep seated fucking morals or values. You know what I mean?
of
Like
course not. What do you mean? But what would be an example of doing that?
for me to change my name back because I'm afraid of what somebody will think
Oh,
about it.
yes, exactly.
Like, yes,
Sure.
there are some people who are going to think it's unprofessional. There are going to be some people who think it's what unprofessional. Straight up, that's my name, and it's like, but you know, at this point it violates my values to change it back, because let me just say this: despite what somebody in the business thinks, it changes because I think, because one of my business values is audacity. I think that you need an audacious and artistic values is audacity. I think you need audacity. And so for me to change it back because some people are going to think it's unprofessional violates a value of mine.
Well, you know what I think is so fucking funny about this business? Everybody just wants you to be your own unique person, march to the beat of your own drum, and yet everybody just spends the whole time telling you how to get in fucking line.
Sure, yeah.
And I say it because who cares what and I'm proud that, because I thought I was aware. You had told me that this office and that this person in particular had sort of was asking questions about it, and I was like, oh God, I hope you don't go back on it. And when you sent me the email that you sent, I was like, oh, good for you, because yeah, literally, especially in what we do in business in general. I don't care if you're the bodega down the street, a shoe company, you sell plants, I don't care. But especially in the arts, you want to stand out.
Right.
That is quite literally
Right.
that is quite literally the gig, is for you to stand out and to take those risks and to be bold. And that's what everyone tells you to do, except when it kind of crosses the line for them. And you know what? Fuck it. We got one life to live. You're a good person. You have good intentions. You're very talented. You want to change your name to fucking LABOD. Your name's LABOD. Period.
And so the other point about thinking too much about other people think about you is comparing. Now
Yeah,
look,
100%.
sometimes comparing is good.
Sure. You can learn from it.
Comparables, look, I think it's very valuable to look at comparables and to look at people you admire or people that you think you're competing against constantly.
Yep.
And you're like, hey, okay, what can I learn? But this is the difference. How you know the comparison is getting bad versus helpful is when you're like, oh, they're doing it, so I have to do it. No, well, hold on. I think you need to ask yourself, number one is there's a step before that.
Right.
Which is, that's what they're doing. Does that apply to, there's a moment of critical thinking.
Right. Well, this is fear versus love again.
Right, exactly.
My fear is I should
reactionary.
Be doing
which I think is important, which is kind of bleeding in. One of the main problems with, if you're being very reactionary to things.
Right.
And you're not using critical thinking, or you're not taking a moment to stop and think and evaluate and question, then you're probably operating from a place of fear. And because I think comparing yourselves to others can be very valuable. in terms of like, oh, because you can help differentiate yourself. You can go, okay, that's what they offer. What do I offer?
Right.
We don't exist in a vacuum.
Right.
So
Right.
comparing yourself is good, but where it starts to get bad is when, number one, you take it as self-worth, right? When you don't do anything helpful with it, you just like compare. It's like, oh, they're better than me. They book all the time. I don't. I suck. Well, that's not helpful.
Right.
The other reason is if you're getting reactionary and you're like, oh, everybody's on TikTok. I got to be on TikTok. Well, hold on. Maybe. What are your goals? What are your values? What makes you different? Is that what your audience? There's more questions to ask than just to be reactionary.
Well, you put this down. I think this is true interesting. Because it's sometimes we operate from a place of fear and we become reactionary because it's uncomfortable to be in between.
Right.
I struggle with this. Michael is very good. Michael is very good at taking he's in post for this movie, and he's really taking his time. He sits with things, and it's and he was telling me, the guy who's editing it and was his DP, Nick Beardsley, super talented.
It's really good.
Has a he works very quickly, so like he'll finish something and he'll just like try to get it done in a day. I'm the same way. I like to make decisions and move
place
on.
from action, place of action, which is
but I do think that sometimes it's a place of fear too. Like if I
Yes.
were to really break it down, and I'm really impressed with like Michael's ability and other people's ability to take time to
well,
get
it's a
space.
balance because okay, we had that interview with E. Clay, which I thought was
Uh-huh.
so good.
Yeah.
But one of the things that E. Clay said that I thought was really interesting was like part of what drives him is like, okay, like how am I paying my bills in 2 months?
Uh-huh.
And he's in a place of action
Sure.
and going and going
Sure.
and going and going and going.
Sure.
So
Sure.
look, we're not here to say that
Balance.
operating
Balance.
from fear is bad.
Yeah.
Because fear is a very powerful motivator. And it's
Sure.
like and it's and look, the bills do need to get paid. And so it's like it's good. So when it's good to be operating from a place of action, but if you're going, so that was my thing last year. Last year I was going so, and it wasn't like I was taking breaks or anything. Like, yeah, sure, I was taking breaks, but I was like zonking, no rest. It was like I would like work like fucking 10 hours and I'd zonk out. You know what I mean? Or like because I was operating from a place of go, work without really saying like. And what I was doing, a lot of it was not like I didn't have enough things in my life to balance that out that I like loved doing.
You just said it. You just said it. Fear can be a great motivator, as long as we're continuing to balance that out with love. Other forms of operating from a place of fear, I learned this, and I came up. I said this to you the other day. Perfectionism.
Sure.
Perfectionism.
You said this in your weekly Get At It.
Is an interesting form of self-sabotage, and I would argue that sometimes. So actually, talking about materials as an example, this always happens. This is fascinating to me. People will talk about getting representation, and they'll say, "But my materials aren't ready."
Yeah.
Okay, great. But the next thing you know, it takes 7.5 months to get a photograph, a piece of paper,
Sure.
And maybe 90 seconds, as opposed, and I would argue that that's operating from a place of fear. I'm so afraid that it has to be perfect.
Right.
And what is perfect?
Right.
That it stops me from moving
Right. To
forward
even like moving
at all.
incrementally, which shows that look, a lot of this has to do with, I think a big part of like if you are uncomfortable in process, that's a big sign you're operating from fear. If you are really uncomfortable with being in process, but something interesting that I want to.
Yeah.
Again, I think you should.
I'm thinking
really,
about. I won't say who it is, but I'm
Yeah.
thinking about that one person we worked with who wanted to have the huge career, but was so obsessed with like the tiny little TV things and just getting
Yes.
as opposed to sort of being in a state of like
wanting to
growth.
present booking
Exactly.
one line coast and like wanting to present that because that's what it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
the other thing I'll say about the preparation thing, or not the preparation thing, but the perfection thing, you have to read this Zone book the more I think about it because it's so good. But he's like a big sign that people are operating from a place of that they're not, like a big thing that gets people out of the zone is they practice up to the last moment. He's like champions don't do that. Like champions don't cram until the last moment. Because he's like,
Then you have to find ease.
because there's no ease, because you're like, because there's no ease. Now
Mhm.
sometimes, but it's as opposed to like being like present and being like, what do I need now?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I need like he used the example of like Phil Mickelson, who like won the PGA Tour and took a nap, like took like an hour-long nap right before he teed off, and that was people thought that was crazy.
You know, I knew that was a golfer. Isn't that good? Isn't that impressive?
That's
I
good.
knew that was a golfer.
Yeah, but he like, that's really, wow, you're straight showing.
I'm a big man now, baby.
Your white man showing. No,
My
but
white big man.
the white straight guy. But no, but he was like, this guy like took a nap. He took a nap before he was, and everybody was shocked because like, you don't take a nap, like that's like taking a nap before the Super Bowl. Like you don't fucking do that. It's like, but like he knew, he was present enough to go like,
Grounded enough.
this is what I need in this moment. He's like,
right.
I need in this moment to take a nap. And it's
Well,
like,
and actually
yeah.
going back to that audition that I had that was so great, interestingly enough, I was so prepared. I remember, I went out the room looking at their stuff, going over it, talking to the wall.
Right,
I just sat there.
right.
Joshua, are you ready? I went in. And that's another conversation about preparation. The other way I think that's interesting in terms of working from a place of fear is an unwillingness to accept feedback or criticism.
Yes.
Because think about this. Think about this when we get notes. Because you and I've talked about this. That when part of why we too, but also others can get defensive with notes is because when you get a note, there's the fear of, do they see my cracks? Am I not perfect? Am I not the best actor ever? It's from a place of fear, as opposed to like, what can I take from this? How can I use this feedback? So we cut ourselves off to feedback of any kind, right?
Right.
I think about this. I'm a big when I'm auditioning folks for a project. I always, if I'm interested, I always ask for adjustments. To see how they take
Of course.
adjustments. But it's really interesting to see the people who get really thrown by this, because the people think like adjustments as though it's a negative.
Well, also, what you're saying is, I've been thinking a lot about this with acting mainly, but it's like, it's because it's the belief in the one. It's the belief in like there's a right way
Right.
to do it,
Right.
and there is a perfect. It's perfectionism versus process, and it's joy of play versus like doing a good job.
And seeking validation only.
Exactly.
And
Like,
again, that's all fear-based versus love, right?
and when you're exactly, because when you're focused on doing a good job,
Right.
with anything,
Right.
automatically, I think like 99% of the time, like you are that's somebody else's standard. Whatever your whole standard you're holding yourself to, it's not like what you think is good, it's what they think is good. So yes, I think you're right. Like if you're somebody who's gripping like, this is how it's got to be, or this is the way it is,
Yes.
or like,
Yes.
then you're really, then you're not you're not letting yourself be out of control, because when you accept feedback, right, what you're accepting is like, oh, there is more work to be done, and there's something deeper to dig, as opposed to, I've said it, it's set, that's the way it is, moving on.
100%.
And it's scary to be in process.
And by the way, it's funny. Obviously won't say who it was, but there's someone who, sorry, checking emails. No, it was about this. It was Nick Rayberger. I love him. He does
Yeah.
wrote back to us. He's been in previews. I want to go see that show, The Patriots.
Oh, we should go see it together. He's such a sweet guy.
He's such a sweet guy. I'm sure he said yes, but no. But there's someone that messaged who might start working with me, but me. Yeah, we're gonna get Nick Rayberger on, friends.
Oh,
You're
that's
gonna love
great.
Nick. He's sweet. He's appearing in The Patriots now. So anyway, there's someone who messages me, emails, and if you're listening to this person, I'm saying this from a place of love. They go, before we begin, I was looking over the materials and watching these videos and I think I could value from some of this, and there's much that I disagree with. So I just want to make sure you're okay being challenged. And I said, I went back and I said, well, first of all, of course, no problem. Challenge me. It's not my career, just to be clear. But I said, you'd be coming to us to learn new strategies, new ways of working.
Sure.
I said, think about it like you would be in a creative space. If we were shaping a scene, I have no problem with disagreements, thoughts, questions. But if you come in from, I don't agree with that. This is, and it's operating from a place of fear,
Oh, absolutely.
because it's more so about, don't question. And you listen, for some people, I'm sure our podcast, I'm sure our work, it's very threatening to people, because it a lot of it does question what we've been told and what we've been led to believe, what's been spoon fed to us, and I get it. I
There's
understand why that's
potential in
scary.
everything, dude. It's like,
What do you mean
I
by
think
that?
I'm still feeling that edible from yesterday.
How much was it?
It was a 50 milligram gummy, but I had
You
25. No, I had half of it.
Oh, that's still a lot.
No, well, no, I had a 50 milligram like last week. That was fucking crazy.
Is
Is that a
that
lot?
50 milligrams is a lot, especially if this is not something that Mike does a lot. So
Anyway, but
that's that morning you woke up. I remember that morning.
what?
I remember I nearly asked you if you were fucking stoned, because it was that morning you were not at your place.
Oh, then yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, because I'm thinking about what you're saying, and basically what's coming up for me is like, we don't need to view business. Take what you like and leave the rest. Come in that way.
This is what you mean by opportunity,
Well,
right?
like this person or them or whomever, it's
Mhm.
like, and I'm so all or nothing. I'm either doing all of the work, our work, because our work is like a very clear curriculum. I'm either doing it perfectly, all of it,
Or
or
none
I'm
of it.
completely off it.
Yeah.
And it's
I
like,
know what you mean.
and that's how it is for,
Yeah,
by the
a
way,
lot.
many
A lot.
of our clients. And it's like, that's fear. As opposed to just accepting the messy, and accepting, you're right, it is perfection, the messiness, and like accepting, like, hey, this is all this is all bringing value to my life in different ways. That's how you operate from love. And it's like, so if somebody disagrees with you, or you're in a situation that's uncomfortable, or like in a room where it's like somebody like doesn't like your work, or is like whatever, or is like giving you notes, or when you're operating from a place of love, you're like, these are all opportunities. These truly are all opportunities
Well,
to experience things a little fuller.
Well, and not to be too tangential, and not, but only because it's, I've really, over the past, I would say 6 months in particular, I've developed a pretty rigorous meditation schedule. But here's what's interesting: so I meditate every day, and I meditate every morning in particular. Not enough, and it's going to relate to what you're saying. Um, it's I should be meditating 3 times a day.
Sure.
And I'm saying this because one of the primary benefits of meditation, which I've done my whole life. My mother was a yoga teacher, so I was, as a kid. So I've been through.
You're half Indian.
I'm half Indian. My name is, never mind. Anyway,
No, go do not go there. Don't say my name is Ed. Wherever you were going.
But here's why I'm saying this, because part of what, and I'm going to tell you a quick random story because this is fucking crazy. So part of what it is, of course, is like detaching yourself from, not so that you become numb, but you detach yourself from good, bad, this is bad, this makes me angry. You start to just sort of like notice,
Sure.
rather than attach judgments and yourself and things.
Yeah, of course.
So I went to see, there's a clown comedian deviser, Zach Zucker is his name, and he has this show, Jack Tucker, that it was the show at Edinburgh Fringe. It's about this, like, it's this basically like failed stand-up comic, or like it's a one-man show. It's crazy. It was at Soho Playhouse. We went the other day. There was a dude in front of me. No shit. LABOD. This guy, his daughter's to his right. All these dudes. This whole group
All
was
these dudes, or you say Jews?
Well, dudes.
There's a Jews. I was like, okay.
all these dudes, probably from Jersey. No shade to Jersey, but this guy's sitting in front of me, and we're in a fucking theater. He packs a bowl and begins to smoke it. And here's the thing: over and over and over again. I was freaking out, but my meditation practice really kicked in. I promise you, because a year ago, I don't know what I would have done. It wasn't even the fact, and I don't like I smoke. I'm very sensitive to anyway, but to do that in a theater doing a show with all these, I mean, how dare you?
Well, let me just sorry to cut you off, but people are animals.
Can you believe that? In front of his daughter was to his right.
I was talking
To his right.
How old was the daughter?
20.
Wow. I was talking to a bunch of people in the cast because we just closed the show, and it's audience etiquette
It
is
drives me
the
nuts.
worst it's ever. People like during the pandemic like became retarded. Like I don't know what the fuck happened. I can say I have retarded people in my family.
They're not retarded.
No, they're not, but they're close. So I one of them is. So I got
It's Mike.
it's me.
Checks the computer for the 1000th
Yeah,
time.
exactly. Well, because it
No,
keeps
I'm kidding.
going out.
I'm kidding.
But no, but like people are fucking animals
I
in the
know.
theater, bro.
I know.
What is going on? Like
Crazy.
I have, and by the way, all races, all ages, all walks of life.
Retarded.
Checking their phone. Retarded. 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 No, but everybody's checking their phone.
So bad.
I've never seen so many people like check like
I know.
texting
I
during
know.
shows.
I know.
It's
I know.
fucking wild.
Do you know one time, and I'll tell you this quickly, this story too, because it drives me nuts. There was one time during Les Mis when this girl, front row, filming the whole show. Now listen. Why I care so much? Again, and I wasn't meditating then, so this is probably why. But the whole show, she was, and I kept going off stage and go to stage management. You got to tell them, go get house management to tell her. Da, 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 da. And we had crazy fans like that. She just would hold the phone the whole time. Second act begins. We're at the barricade. I go out into the audience from the stage. I got in so much trouble for this, but I go out. We see you. Turn your fucking phone off. I mean, I was so mad at her. I was so
That's awesome.
because who do you think you are? Who do you think you? I hear like Patti LuPone. Who do you think you are?
Fucked up that I did during the. I found out this later. There's a guy in the second row, and the whole time he's like this. The whole show, he's old guy, and he's like this. My eyes are closed. He's like this.
Is he paraplegic?
No, but he's like this. And during the show, there's a part where I give that jar to the audience. I walked up to him, and I went, and he went, and I like put the thing on his lap.
Oh my god!
You know who it was?
Who?
The artistic director of Theater for a New Audience.
Well,
I don't give a shit.
Okay, but two things. What was he doing? Was he sleeping?
No. Well, apparently he's notorious. He says, I'm listening. He's like, you may think, he says this to people in rehearsal, you may think I'm asleep, but I'm listening.
Well,
that's but this motherfucker, but because there's a few people who worked at Tefana who were in the cast, they're like, no, he snores. Like he's full of shit. Like he claims that he's listening. And by the way, you're the artistic director of a theater company and you don't watch the plays. Like
no, that is okay. But two things. Number one, Gerald Friedman, our old dean, he used to do that. And when I direct, I often close my eyes and I'll listen. So if I can hear, because I'm very tonal sonic. So
the entire show.
No, that's too much. It's too much. And to your point, which is what we're talking about here. So you can see my feet, free feet content for y'all.
Patreon, sign up for the Patreon.
Exactly, close-ups. My dry, crabby feet. No, but to your point, you have to be aware, in my opinion, of how that might affect other people, including the people on stage who are, 3 feet away from you. Now, okay, wait. One last thing about being fear-based. You have this here, hustling to thrive.
Well, that's kind of. This kind of ties in with everything we're talking about, which is like, if you are working like one of the ways to tell if like you're operating from a place of fear is if you're working yourself ragged too much. Look, because last year was a year where I worked myself ragged, and it doesn't mean I was effective. By the way, it doesn't mean I was doesn't mean I was like, oh, I was just working myself ragged. And when I think about it, I was very afraid. I was very afraid. And if I'm not allowing for silence, if I'm not allowing for stillness, if I always, need to be doing something, if I'm like that, I'm very difficult for me to sit still.
Mm-hmm.
And if I work one on top of the other, blah, 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 all day nonstop. And look, if I'm getting joy from that, if I'm wow, I was in a flow, and I went for 2 hours or 3 hours, great. But if I'm like overbooking and I'm not, and if I feel like if I sit still for 5 minutes
Sure.
or go for a walk or hang
Yeah.
out with a friend,
I'm the
or
same.
and I feel guilty and there's guilt in that,
Yeah. No, I know that's
I think that's fear based.
I think that is a really good point. And we live in such a fast-paced culture that's so instant gratification driven, and this is where social media does play a
Right.
role, where all of a sudden we're obsessing, should I be doing more and this and that, blah, blah, blah. And you're so right. And that's why it's gonna be different person to person.
And if you're constantly telling yourself like once I get past this, or
Exactly.
once I get past this,
As
like
opposed to
that's how
staying
you know you're
present.
not living in process. Because
Exactly.
like,
Or in the moment
and
at
look,
all.
sometimes it's like sometimes look, I'm not gonna sit here and say like sometimes you don't need to. So yeah, sometimes you need to pull an all nighter. Sometimes you need to fucking go. Sometimes you need to get after it. And you need to fucking cram. You need to fucking do it. Like you need to fucking go. But if that's like a majority of your time is like in that mind space of like once I get past this, once I
Yes.
get past this, or I can finally do this, or I
Yes.
can finally relax. Like that's already, you could tell like that's total fear based, because if you're saying once I do this I can finally have this,
Exactly.
it's like have that now, dude.
Exactly.
Have that now.
Yes.
It's like once I just need to work, I need to get this so that I can finally focus on my ex, or blah 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 blah. That's how you know that's probably one of the biggest ways I know I'm in fear.
I want to do a whole episode on living the life you want to be living now.
Sure.
Because I do think that's an interesting topic. So let's talk about more specifically what it means to approach your career from a place of love, which we
Sure.
already said that it means, again, diving in with passion, a sense of authenticity, and a deep sense of purpose, and bringing gratitude of I get to do this
Right.
into your day to day. I think part of where it begins, and we talk about this a lot. And I just want to say before I say this is still. I understand what this means conceptually, and we help a lot of people try to understand this for themselves. But I still don't even fully understand exactly what this is, which is connecting to your why, understanding what that why is, so that you allow yourself to have passion subsequently for what that why is. I think we all have it, and I think there's ways that we can craft it, and I understand my why, and it's personal for me and something that I am passionate about, but I think it's deeper for all.
Well, it's
You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying. Well, it's hard to just like be road, for lack of putting it, like be road about it, or like to just treat it like okay, like that's my why, like I have it in a sentence, and it's like, or like,
Right.
as opposed to like embodying it.
Yes.
Like it's hard to because most of the time the things that we really value in life, I'm sorry, I know I keep saying this, like require us to be a little bit out of control
Mm,
and to surrender a little bit
mm,
and to let
mm.
go of the result. It's like when you're really living it, it requires a little bit of that. And that's hard to do. That's really hard to do, because it's like I value a lot of things, and I have a strong why that, like, yeah, I get, because I let my fear distract me. I got to be doing this. I got to be doing this. I got to be doing. Look, it's especially with our. Listen, there are thousands of strategies, thousands of ways that you can
Absolutely.
make art for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
Thousands of ways to skin the cat, right? And it's like I oftentimes find myself like considering these things, but sometimes like letting them distract me, because I'm like, oh, I need to get that, or I need to have that, or I need to get those over here, and then so I'm completely off all of it, because there's so many considerations, as opposed to what am I about? What am I really about? What kind of work do I want to make? What kind of impact do I want to have?
Well, I
And,
think
and
this has been a big evolution, because we've talked about this, a big evolution for our work in particular, because I think a lot of people struggle with just the sheer scope of what they can be doing at any given moment. And in fact, one of the things that I there are a few people I'm working with now that I'm like, let's just bring it back to creating your own work, self-producing, because it's going to force you to hit a bunch of different things. And if and we've talked about this, and I think we've actually talked about that very thing about if it's through the lens of I'm creating my opportunity, then actually what gets then I have a more singular focus that allows me to find a through line, as opposed to your point, which is I'm semi distracted and working from a place of fear of, oh, I guess I should be doing
Well,
all
let me
these
tell you
things.
the number one way I think that if you're a real now look, this is maybe a little controversial. I don't know. But the real way you can tell if you're an artist, if you're a true artist, if you're operating from a place of love, is if you're making art.
There you go.
That's the best way.
There you go.
Because that's the best way.
Because otherwise, what are we? Because this is the point about the why. Otherwise, what are we doing?
And look, because like I have to remember that all of these strategies, all of these things, these considerations, which are important, they're supplemental to art making. They supplement and lift up. But you need to, but not only do you need to, like, forget like you need to, like, you're an artist, like, make art, like, generate, be creative. And if you are not being creative in your day-to-day life and weeks on end, like, if you're like, oh, I'm seeing the branding expert, or I'm getting the headshot, or I need to make this content, like, as opposed to like spending time in the dirt, like, what am I passionate about? What stories do I want to tell?
100%.
Let me get in the room with people I care.
Yes.
That's love. Like, that is for
Now
artists.
and
That's
now
love.
more than ever, in a moment when, because we often talk
Fuck,
about
bro.
how the workaday actor, the Reed Birneys, the Arnie Burtons, the Kate Burtons,
Sure, all the Burtons,
all the Burtons, all the Bernie Burtons, the people who a lot of us look up to now and are like, oh, I just want their career. Well, because the industry's changed, to your point, it's like, yeah, truly, truly, folks, go out and make your work, channel that love, that passion, that why for what you're doing into your creative work.
and the it's like, because that's when we're alive, right? That's when we're joyous. Now,
Well, I was just going to say, that was sort of the next one in terms of how we approach our career with love, is finding more joy in the whole process. I think
yeah, well, it's like, because with the, and that's the thing, right? It's like, and look, our work, I relate this to our work, because our work is really about running the business,
the totality of
the totality of the business.
Right. Not just the scene
And
work,
being an
not just
entrepreneur,
the
being an
headshots.
entrepreneur.
Right. Like any business would.
And exactly. And to me, I say the joy because I'll be honest with you. I've been blessed to work a lot. And why have I been blessed to work a lot? By the way, is because of this work. That's the only reason why I've been working. That is literally the only reason why I booked this fucking first feature film. That's the only reason why I've been acting consistently for
a long time,
almost a year. I've contract.
Yeah.
For a year. By
Yeah.
the time I'm done with this next contract, it's like, is because of this work. But when I really think about it, so there's that. I have to say that. But this is supplemental to the joy. Like, yeah, so I can find more joy in it, and I should find more joy in it. And not everything's got to be, I have to do it. It's like, no. And we'll get to this. How can you reframe these things that, like, there's nothing wrong with, like, connecting with people that you care about and want to work with. There is something really nice. There's nothing wrong about making your own work, about, like, understanding what makes you special in this space. Like, which is marketing, right? It's like, there's nothing wrong with those things. But, you have to lead. It's what Nick Blameyer said, what you think is true. It's, you have to, even if it's like a little bit more, you have to lead with the art, because that's what's going to bring you joy. And for a long time, I have not been leading with art. I was going so hard in the business stuff and not enough in, like, let me do a fucking collage, or let me just, like, read this play with my friends, just cuz, not because we're going to produce it next year. but just cause.
Absolutely.
And it's like, that's what I mean is like, when you lead with joy, like you're letting go of the result a bit. Anyway, whatever. But
No, yes. And just to say, so another few other ways how you're approaching a creative career with love, you're seeking out opportunities for growth. I would argue that could be
I think that's
challenges,
good. Yeah.
feedback, criticism. You want to grow. You don't want to stay where you are when you are leading from a place of love.
Yep.
We're saying this, but leading with your creativity,
Yes.
that is part of how you're approaching your career from a place of love. Being excited about possibility. I once wrote a blog post years ago now, for this is probably 6 years ago, that was called Propelled by Possibility. And the whole concept, as was like, if all of this is hard, we get that. But if we are, if we connect to the possibility of the opportunity, the possibility of what we're doing in a way that lifts up our why, lifts up our passion, that has the ability to lift up our creativity, what an incredible thing to focus on rather than all that can go wrong. They're not going to like if I email them that. Oh, what if I can't raise enough money? What if I'm back? Okay, sure. But if we're approaching this from a place of love, then the possibility, the potential is what's really exciting, and what an
Yep.
exciting motivator that
Yeah.
can be.
And again, a possibility of yes result, I think is big. Like, look, yeah, it's nice to go, oh, well, this could happen. This could do this. Or yes, absolutely. I'm not saying like let completely go of results, but also the possibility and the potential of like learning, which is different than just like, because yes, I am excited. I'm very excited by like sometimes too excited, I think, by like, oh, this could go here, or I can make this into this, and that could be like really good for this over here, and that could be
Yeah.
big for me here.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
But again, I think that when you're too in the results, it can be challenging, as opposed to like also there's potential to grow. What?
Well, because you know
Keep
what
talking.
you know what I was thinking about. I was thinking about how there are so many career highs, of course, but they're fleeting. And what I mean by that is that, to your point about
Yes, that's a good point.
the result, because I was writing something for this press thing the other day, and I was sort of doing like a little retrospective, and I was like, oh, I've accomplished quite a bit, but it doesn't matter.
Doesn't mean
Every day, get up, and I have to fight.
In this business,
Exactly.
it means like just like those, the experiences are what matter. And when you are so obsessed about the hot, like those, like it's hard to like take it in and be like, those were beautiful people. That was a beautiful experience. I learned X, Y, and Z.
Well, exactly. And I mean, the one of the best examples that we talk about a lot is like day player shit. Like, let's say you get a killer guest star on Evil or Lotto, whatever the fuck. You get a killer guest star, and it shows you great, and maybe you make some great relationships on set. Maybe the office loves you. Who knows? Okay, next. Meaning a lot of times I think
Sure, of
people
course.
just think that there's a natural build. One of the things that I have always been obsessed with, and I sort of go down these rabbit holes of, is like where artists go, like who hit it big,
Right.
have a big opportunity, and then sometimes go away. Where do they go? And I don't even mean it as a negative. I'm really saying it because I think we have this obsession with that. There's like a that we grease the runway. Every opportunity just leads to another, and it doesn't. Sure, of course, there are people who have a moment, and sometimes that moment keeps on growing, and I love that for those people. But for most of us, you don't think, again, when I thought, oh, I get to originate this role on Broadway. Oh, well, once I've originated a role on Broadway, it's just going to, more and more doors will open. Did it open some doors? Of course. Are many, many, many doors still closed? Abso-fucking-lutely. So,
Which is why if you're working for the result, it's
Right.
pointless.
Right.
Because you're never going to have enough.
You're never going to be
You're never
happy.
going to have enough to. You're never.
Yeah.
You're never going to be
Yeah.
happy. You're never going to have truly enough to be stable. in this business, like that's the thing is, I don't care what anybody says. I don't think. Let's take Tom Cruise. Okay, the biggest movie star in the world.
Your daddy, you
My
love him.
dad, my father. Please.
he's corn cobbing. You're chewing on his pubic hairs here.
Is that what they call that when they get the side?
I don't
They give a blowjob. Anyway.
corn cobbing. No, I
That's
don't know.
hot. That's hot though. Anyway,
Nibbles and all.
what was I talking about? Oh, so like
Tom Cruise?
you tell that dude is not resting.
Right.
There is no universe in which he is kicking back. Why
Right.
do I say this?
Right.
Because in this business, you are always going to have to be moving.
Yeah.
This is fucking This is late stage capitalism.
yeah.
Not just capitalism. Late stage
Yes.
capitalism.
Yes.
Where everything literally where
It's
China is going to be in
crumbling.
charge.
Absolutely.
China's going to be in charge in 50 years.
Yeah.
Do not get it twisted, bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like we are at the end.
Hopefully,
And
I'll
like
be
you're gonna
about
have
to
to
die.
be like you're gonna have to be this.
Yeah.
That's
100%.
And so if you are
100%.
so you're always gonna have to be moving.
Uh-huh.
You're always gonna have to move anyway.
Right. More so as the world
More so.
continues to
You're gonna
crumble.
have to do it anyway. You might as
Literally
well
as New York sinks,
you might as well do it from a place. There's enough things you could do that you could find joy in.
Sure.
There's
100%.
enough you could do to find joy in.
Absolutely.
To say fuck the rest. Okay, like maybe I'm not gonna be perfect. Maybe I'm not gonna be on fucking TikTok and have like 100 million followers. Maybe I'm not gonna like, produce that dream thing I wanted to produce, or I'm not gonna have that, or I'm not gonna be perfect, or I'm never gonna get in with that casting. Okay. Maybe. But you're gonna have to move anyway, so you might as well do it from a place of like excitement and love
Absolutely.
as opposed to like pure fear, which is how I've been operating a lot.
Well, I would argue a lot of us, the late stage capitalism thing is deeply fascinating to me too.
Changing World Order by Ray Dalio,
Really
his
good.
new book. Oh, it's changing. Well, it's Ray Dalio, so it's all about
Too many books.
changing world order. It's about the end. He's just writing about the end.
Great.
The end of America, basically.
Fabulous.
So, but anyway.
No, but I yes to all of that. Let's talk about some examples.
Yes.
Of that specific to our industry. In relation
of fear
to
versus love.
Fear versus love. So the first one, and you sort of started to hit on it, is this idea of building relationships. And a fear example is networking because you have to.
I have to know that person.
Yeah, exactly. Or just like, because a lot of times everyone obsessed with casting. Oh, Jesus Christ. Anyway, okay, I have to know everybody. I won't say the name of who it is, but I hope you feel me talking about you. This casting director who's just I don't like.
Who a lot of people, by the way, don't like.
Yeah.
TV casting director.
Yeah. Just not a great energy. Me approaching it from a place of fear, it would be me just sucking this guy's dick because I want an in. You know what?
And I have to know him.
And I have to know him because he's so powerful. No, it's exactly your point. This is the life I have to live. I'm not putting myself in that situation just because this fucker, thinks he wields some power. He's going to be dead in 2 years anyway.
And here's what's incredible about this business, right?
That would mean he's going to be dead.
There are thousands but there are hundreds of people. Like, it's hard, right? Because yes, sometimes it's good to just throw a pin at the wall. That's a good business strategy, to just like constantly expanding community, being like, we'll see, or that person could help me here or there. That's all great. However, there are enough people, there's probably like 30 people of not just big stars, but all levels, who I'm like, I love those people's work. And I value their work, and I admire them, and there are a few casting people among them. Like, I value their work. I would love to work with them. That, like, if I just went after those 30 people, really, in reality, like, that's enough.
Absolutely.
Like, that's enough. It's like, I
Absolutely.
don't need to be constantly, oh, all the new, oh, because that's the thing too, is there's so much changeover in this business, and there's so many, who's on top, who's got this, is if you're just kind of tracking who's hot in a moment,
Sure.
like, then you're gonna be fucking miserable because it's always changing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The other thing about, being fear-based with relationship building is focusing on what you can get as opposed to what you can give. I
Yes.
say fear-based because, again, it's that same idea of what we're talking about, being overly results-driven. Let me just get to the thing I want as opposed to
Yes.
hold on. The love approach, the reason why we call this community cultivation too, and not just networking, is because you're trying to cultivate a community that you
Yes.
want to be a part of, that you're excited to give back to.
Yes.
And then of course, if karmically, if it comes back, amazing. But if the intention is coming from a place of love, is what can I do, how can I provide value, how can I add to my garden, so to
Because
speak.
I respect and admire these people as opposed to, oh, I see them as commodities and they can give something to me.
100%.
I mean, that is like, look, I just don't think, like, look, because let's take like all these fucking agencies that are crumbling. So
I know,
you've been trying to
KMR and
KMR
A3.
A3. So it's like, could you imagine, like, if you
Wow.
were really trying to cultivate those people for years, trying to get, and then they just
Totally.
whereas if you're operating from a place of
Totally.
love, it's like, it doesn't matter if A3 doesn't exist anymore, because I'm sure a lot of those people are going to go other places. I'm sure a lot of those agents are going to find, maybe not all of them, but I'm sure a lot of them will find other places. So if you're operating more from love and more of like, it's not just like I want to be rep by them because they're big, but it's like, I like them. I like that person.
Yes, exactly.
Then
Sure.
you follow them where they go or whatever. It's
Right.
like, you know
Right.
what I
I
mean?
I totally know what you mean. Yeah, just the whole idea of getting to focus on relationship building, because there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear. What if I people feel used? I'm afraid that I'm going to annoy people.
Right.
That all of we have. This is a fear-based
And
perspective
again, look at your
on relationship.
motivations.
Exactly.
If you're operating from a place of like, I respect and admire that person's work, I'd love to work with that person, and that is like, and I'm not being transactional like from the beginning, but I'm like expressing personal interest and da, da, da. And if that's not reciprocated, then guess what? Then that person probably will become somebody I really probably don't want to know
Well, you
to
know
an
what?
extent.
Do you know what's a theme in what we're talking about today? And it's an interesting counter to so much of this. A lot of times when people come and they'll say, "Oh, Joshua, Labad, I need a new agent, or I wanted to." Da, da, da." Well, a lot of it, this business is based on who you know, as many businesses are, and so of course, we'll say, well, we need to build relationships, but if we are working from a place of process, and living in a place of process, which is the theme that keeps coming back today, then to your point about the movie you just booked, this has been a long process for you in terms of this specific relationship, which I would argue, yes, of course, again, are you making inroads to see potential for your creative career? Absolutely. But in a bigger sense, again, there's the person, and
That
that takes
relationship,
time.
that casting relationship where I got this movie where I don't have agents, by the way, this person called me in. It's because I love the guy. He's a friend of mine. And like, yes,
You've taken the time.
I initially got to know him because I was like, oh, he's casting, blah blah blah.
Exactly.
But but
Yes.
this dude has really become an artist I care about, and like, I love the dude. I think he's a great guy.
100%. 100. There's a casting director. You know who it is. I work with this office a lot, in particular, who it was their birthday the other day, but I genuinely care about them.
Right,
So
exactly.
even if the initial started professional, or the intention was to sort of, it was direction, but then it really became, no, I really value my relationship and respect with this person. And so, sending them happy birthday, even though it's in my calendar. And of course, there's an element of like, this is a professional colleague that I want to maintain a good standing with, but also, no, it's from a place of love and respect more than anything else in a lot
Exactly.
of ways. Okay, self-producing. So I want to talk about this one because we keep going back to this idea of self-producing being the moment, so to speak. But approaching that from a place of fear could be
I'm
creating.
not ready. That's a big one for me. I'm
I'm
sorry.
not. No, please.
I'm not ready. I don't have the thing. One of the things I really want to start doing this year, and I've been saying it, and here we are. What is it, April? I want to direct more
Mm-hmm.
film.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have the. I need to have the. I need to get this. I need to have this. I need to have
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
That's it for me. The self-producing is like it's not going to be. It's a level of perfectionism, right? Because it needs to be. It needs to be. Oh, because other people are going. No, it needs to be like a launch. It needs to be like a well-produced like fuck, as opposed to like I need to start getting dirty. I want to make shit. I need to start getting my hands dirty, and it's like yeah, it's
Right.
not going to be perfect. And look, you can. That's what I mean. And this is something. Strategy is supplemental. That is my new catchphrase. Strategy is supplemental.
Mm-hmm.
Strategy lifts up what you already are doing. And you need to be driven by generation and by making your art. And strategy is there to, as you go, you shape it. You shape it as you go, but you need to be going.
In action.
If you're shaping, if all you're doing is shaping
right.
and not going.
Well, you know what I say, thinking kills ideas.
Exactly.
It's funny you say that too, because I think self-producing from a place of fear is also self-producing to pass the time.
Oh, sure.
To spite the industry. What I mean
Sure.
by that is
they won't give it to me, so I'll do it myself.
Exactly. Or kind of like what we were talking about, this hustle culture. I've got to be in a place of I just got to be doing this as instead of creating with purpose.
I need to be on. Let me make a bunch of TikToks because it's like, well, is that?
And actually, just to say your thing about strategy, I have here creating self-producing in a place of fear is an over focus on strategy and not on creating good art.
That's that
So-
too.
so-
that too.
So because we talk a lot about producing strategically, because there are ways to self-produce strategically. But if you're producing only strategically, which could be just to
motherfucker.
build this relationship, to get this social content, as opposed to but also I'm just making good art. I want to make.
I'm going to use a brief example. I have a short that I want to make that, like, yes, it is the short that should have a budget of maybe 25. But I can make it right now. I can make it now.
For probably
it wouldn't be
$800.
It wouldn't be It would be. Listen, it would not be of the quality it needs to be.
Right.
To be the. But like, so what am I going to? Like, well, then let me start fundraising right now. Or if I don't have the capacity to consider that right now, let me make the fucking thing, because the thing's been on my mind. It's like, I'm not saying like just go, because that's the mistake I've made in the past. I have made this mistake in the past where I've been so like, let me just go make, create, and never considered strategy. And that hurt me a bit.
Of course.
But now I'm so in the other camp.
Balance.
Where it's like, I'm so like, oh, I have to have this. Whereas, but like, listen, I could find somebody to shoot it for cheap.
Absolutely.
I can figure out how to pay them later. I could fucking figure it out.
Absolutely.
I could figure it out.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. Now, more examples of working from a place of love is working from the lens of it being an opportunity to share your art. If I'm self-producing, to your point, you could do it for 25, but if you want to make and it's an opportunity to share your art, that's an opportunity that's approaching from a place of love. The other thing is self-producing in terms of approaching a career from a place of love is the ability to create every single day. Meaning you might not be on set every single day, but if we're generating, it's because this is what we do. This is who we are. This comes back to our why, our purpose. If that is what's leading us, that place of love of I've got to make art because I'm an artist.
Well, of course I haven't done this, but one of the things I've been trying to implement, and I will start implementing it, it's not starting the day with 90 minutes of creative work. 90 minutes of creative work. So whether that's working on the play I'm in, or writing, but like purely creative work.
It's I really connect with that. When we were setting our work times recently, one of the reasons why I've been trying to push them a little later is because along with meditating and journaling and doing some exercise, I've started playing piano every single morning,
Yes,
and sometimes I'll be there for 45 minutes.
of course.
And it's because I'm like, oh, that's right, like, because it's so easy. I mean, by easy I just mean it's easeful, it's full of ease, and it allows me to then go into, okay, the rest of the work I need to do, having sort of touched base with all that's important: my mind, my
Well,
body,
here's
my
here's the
spirit, my
fact.
art.
Here's the fact, as far as I'm concerned, that I've been learning. Being an artist entrepreneur is different than being a regular entrepreneur. Because at the end of the day, here's why it's a little different, in my opinion. This might be very controversial. I don't know if you'd even agree with this. I'm not a business person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an artist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no matter how much I try to fit a square peg into a round hole, I'm not a business person. I mean, I think I have really good business acumen, but why do I say this? Because again, it's the all or nothing. I can have both. Let me lead with my art. Let me return back to the joy I had in school. Playing, we always make fun of, like, oh, the kids climbing the trees. And it's like, oh yeah, like that's me I'm climbing the trees. I'm smelling the roses. I need more of that in my life,
Yeah.
because I am an art. Because look, at the end of the day, I'm not saying that there are centuries and centuries of, learning that I don't think is wrong about, like, what an artist's lifestyle is, right? And I don't think it's all true. I don't think it's necessarily false either. Being an artist's lifestyle is different. However, just because, okay, I'm accepting I'm in an artist, and like I am going to lead from a place of maybe a little more out of control, maybe a little bit more creativity, a little bit more blah blah blah. That doesn't mean that I can take these very good things, a lot of things that we have done the work, and not to like jerk myself and yourself off here, but it's like we've done the work to systemize these things to very simple tasks. The 3 people a week.
Right.
So even just doing a quick self-producing tracking sheet, even doing these quick, like having a plan. These things that do not they're not I don't think they should take a majority of your time, in my opinion, but they can, as you go and live a creative life and lead with joy and lead with love, you can, as you go, have not the fear, the practicality,
Mm-hmm.
which is, look, listen, practicality has to come from a place of a little bit of fear, actually, a little bit,
Uh-huh.
because you're like, oh, you can fortify as you go. You can fortify your life as you go. But you need to be leading with creativity, with art
Sure.
making, with
Yes.
connection,
Yes.
with taking in this with gratitude. I mean, I I think gratitude, I don't think we talk so much about this, but it's like gratitude is the number one way to lead with love. It's the number one way to lead. Is to be is to practice gratitude for what you have, and for not constantly obsessing about all the things you have to do or all the things you need to get in place. Anyway, sorry. But yeah.
No, yes. And I was just thinking about that idea of an artist. I do think an artist entrepreneur is different than a regular entrepreneur. I really do believe that, and I think, you've heard me say many times, in a lot of ways, our work is an experiment. It's an experiment. If to see, it's one thing to provide the tools, but it's another thing, because I do think you are also a natural entrepreneur. Even, you've this is just your chosen field, but if you were, a mechanic, you owned your own car shop, I think you'd do great too. But I think in a lot of ways we are leading an experiment to see
Yes.
if we can help artists develop entrepreneurial spirits. And that's a question too. Can a natural entrepreneurial spirit be developed? Or natural sort of pushes against that idea already, but can that be developed? And but what I think you're saying, that I just think it's important for everybody to hear, especially if you're not a natural entrepreneur, if you lead with your art and you make your art, you will find, which is why, going back to my point about
Oh,
having a single
100%.
focus on self-producing, you will problem solve. You will find ways to listen.
Listen, you started your theater. Well, that's how did you learn all of it? Your theater company.
Look, I'm an entrepreneur. I do think I have a natural business head in a lot of ways. But to be quite honest, I am as impulsive and esoteric and blah 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 as everybody else, if not more so. And some of my business partners can tell you some stories early on from when I was kind of wild because I didn't understand. I had to really develop
Yes.
skill sets, which is why I do think the experiment can work. But it's an interesting conversation that we're having, and this is what in some ways this podcast explores too, because I bet a lot of people who listen, are sort of trying to understand how they can develop their own sustainable creative careers. And we hear it all, y'all, just so you know, whether it's relationships as a problem, or money, or self-producing,
Right.
or marketing, or I don't want to do
Right.
social media, or I
Right.
can't manage my time, or we hear it all. And a lot of times, though, and this is where I do push back a little bit. A lot of times, though, where I get frustrated is when people say, "Well, I'm just an actor. I shouldn't have to, or I don't want to." And look, I understand it empathetically, but I also call bullshit a little bit when people give themselves outs.
Well, that's fear to me too, because the reason why it's fear, I'll say his name because Miles Brewer.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Miles a lot.
He's a
Uh,
filmmaker, right?
he's a filmmaker, but he was on oh, what's that fucking show?
This is
American
someone
Vandal.
we work with. Yeah, he
He's
wouldn't
a
mind you saying his name.
huh?
He wouldn't mind you saying his name.
I don't know.
Okay, great. So Miles
I'll
Brewer.
see. I'll ask him. But no, but Miles is amazing. I love Miles. He's perfect because he's a true artist, but he's excited by, again, not about I'm gonna hustle, I'm gonna strategize my way to a career. It's just, oh, ways I can lift it up, ways I can add, ways I can make it better. Little things I can do to make it better, little strategies I can do to just
Yes.
just to
Yes.
expand.
Exactly.
Expand. And that's the thing, is
Exactly.
when somebody's like, I'm just an actor, I shouldn't have to, they're shutting off. I think they're locked into an idea about what an actor is, and I think that they're not being expansive about, like, just the opportunity,
The full
experience.
potential.
And I will say, look, you can go I've had the opposite problem. Is you can go too much in the other direction where you're so, like, locked into, like, this is how it's got to be. I have to do all these things because I'm not going to have what I want if I don't do that, which is total. By the way, that's total fear talk.
Well, and I think I do that.
I think both of us do that.
No,
But
I think I relate to that. I relate to, I make a lot of mistakes, but I'm very hard on myself for the mistakes I
Right.
make, including dropping the ball. Like, I mean, first of all, to quote, Farrell Parker, who's my best friend and has been on the podcast, and da da da. If you're not behind, where are you? And I mean, because we're always going to be a little behind, but I beat
I like
myself up
that.
over that. And again, this late stage capitalism, we're always going to be behind. I still have 800 text messages unread. I still have, there's always
We are entering. I mean, we are entering a very scary moment, and I say that because information overload, distraction. You're right, like, just crumbling geopolitics, like, all of it's just fucking, and it's like,
It's funny. You want to know? Sorry to cut you off.
no,
There's a book, Station 11. That's a series
yeah,
too.
I've never seen it, but yes,
Michael read the book, and then we were watching the series. And there's this traveling, but the great Lori Petty is in it. She's so good in it. There's like traveling troupe of players. I'm saying this because one of the reasons why I love the theater and why I will always work in the theater is because as shit is crumbling around us, as we go faster and faster, there really is something to be said for sitting and being present and taking in a story and dealing with real people. And
100%.
I'm so grateful that this is my life, even though it's, I could probably make so much more money in my capitalistic hellscape doing something else. I really am so grateful that I get to do what I do every single day.
And let me tell you another way you know you're operating from fear. Truthfully, I think a lack of momentum. I don't believe necessarily. Listen, I do. I have a belief in when I have a relationship with God, Carl Jung said this, by the way. Carl Jung said,
That line killed me in the
"Oh,
play.
Carl on the play, wasn't that
I
funny?"
saw Mike explain the other day. It was so
I'm no
Carl
Carl
Jung.
Jung.
That was your line, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah.
I love that.
Um,
I was the only one who laughed.
yes, exactly. But Carl Jung said, like, that's where he differed from Freud. Was that he believed in God, right? And Freud did not believe in God. And Carl Jung thought that it was essential to live a happy life. And look, it has been proven through studies that if you believe in God, people believe in God are more successful and happier.
Can we just? The only thing I love it. Revise it is like a belief
And a
have
power
faith,
greater
a
than
faith,
themselves.
yes,
A
a
power greater
faith.
than, when I say God, I don't mean like a Christian God, a
Yep.
Muslim God, a
Yeah.
Jewish God. I
Yep.
mean like
I hear that.
I mean a power greater than
Sure,
oneself.
sure.
And having a relationship with that. Why was I even going into this? I think it was because
What were you saying? I lost it.
I lost it too. I think it was just because because how you're living from a place of fear. If you're experiencing a lack of momentum,
Oh yes. Mm-hmm.
then that means you are going aggressively in a direction that is probably not a good direction. That is not a direction that is in line. I'm not saying with the universe or with God's plan or whatever, but if you are going hard in a direction and you are not, I'm doing all the pay to plays in the world. I'm not doing them because I love pay to plays. I'm doing because I'm supposed to do them. There's basic bitch example. I'm doing all the pay to plays I need to do. Let me give you another example. I'm making my own art. Yes, people have down the line given me thoughts, notes, adjustments, things that could have expanded it, but because I was afraid, I shut it out. And so therefore maybe the things I'm producing are not leading anywhere. When you are operating from a place of love, you're inviting in potential. And you're going to do things with higher quality.
Sure.
If you feel like you're banging your head against a wall, I think you're probably operating from a place of fear.
I think this goes back to the idea of finding joy in this whole process too, because think about it. I used to love. We used to love doing CrossFit. I loved doing CrossFit.
Right.
I really loved it. And it was so hard, but I loved the challenge of it. And I loved the community. And even though we would have these workouts that were like literally brutalistic, I didn't matter. I loved being there. I loved killing myself. And I'm saying that because not everything is going to be easy, but if you value the larger whole,
Right.
if you value again the why, the create, which is why self-producing I think is such a good in for some people.
Yes.
Because there's going to be shit you don't want to do, but if you're excited by what you're doing, all the hard stuff, it's just part of the process on the journey to making what you're trying to create. And so I think that's a good point. I do want to say though, because I oftentimes will push back against artists when, oh, I don't want to do that, or
Because it doesn't feel easy.
exactly. But at the same time, let me just contradict myself. To your point, you have to listen to our intuition,
Right.
and I would argue that maybe the thing you're doing might still be valuable, but you don't have a sense of what it's connected to.
Right.
This goes back to this why,
Absolutely.
this sense of purpose. Oh, I know why I'm doing this.
Oh,
I'll actually, because just going back to the audition thing, the thing we have here in terms of fear and love is, if we go into an audition with a fixation of wanting to be liked, of wanting to even get the part, of
yes.
wanting that validation, as opposed, that's fear, as opposed to, what Laura Henry says, I love this.
Oh, it's true, baby.
Every audition sees the opportunity to act. That has been I like auditioning. I'm a good auditioner too, and I like doing. And one of it is because, and I really sometimes when I'm getting frustrated, even the other day you helped me put that thing on tape that I last minute I forgot to do an accent with. I still love it, and I love that play in particular. And so there's an element of like, if I just seize the opportunity to act, who the fuck cares?
Well, that's the thing. With auditioning too, it's so hard because my biggest problem with auditioning was although I've been doing obviously a lot better psyching myself out. Fear.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what I do. Yeah, exactly.
I for years I psyched myself out, and there's
Yeah.
no joy in it. And ultimately, listen, with acting, for me, the only time that there's joy, I tell myself that my new mantra is I don't have to change. Everything else changes around me. That's what he says in the act of the target. And I think that's my new favorite thing. It's like I don't have to do anything to myself. Everything else is changing. I just have to experience the changes. This
Mhm.
person was this, now they're that. And so there's an element of complete surrender. Complete surrender, which is hard to do in an audition.
Of course.
When it's so scary because like you have a job and it's like you're going, it's fucking scary. Auditioning is scary. I'm just gonna fucking say it. I don't care. Auditioning is scary.
It is
but
scary.
when you seize the opportunity to act and see it as like an opportunity to like, look, like you said, fuck it. Fuck the result. Like this is my opportunity to do what I love, which is go up there and like fucking just like
Yes,
experience
exactly.
it.
That's approaching it from a place
of love.
A place of love. The other one the other two I want to talk about because I think they're important. One is money, but specifically, because I mean that's a huge topic, fear or love. But I just want to say in terms of investing in your career, because artists are really hesitant to part with their dollars, which I get. I totally
Right,
get it.
sure.
But if we invest from a place of fear, or excuse me, approach investment in our career from a place of fear, and not put the dollars forward for whatever the thing might be, or put them towards things that are either cheaper or feel more quick fixes, i.e. pay to plays. I've never done one. I'm not saying they're bad. I've just they feel so ineffectual to me, so I don't really understand them. Now there are plenty of people I work with, and I say that's your intro point, great, but instead, love based being that you're willing to take that risk because you know that you're worthy of a return, or your art is worthy
I'll
of a
give you an
return.
example.
Yeah, please.
I'm seeing this. I closed the show this weekend. I'm seeing a show tonight. I'm seeing a show tomorrow night. I'm seeing a show Thursday night. I'm seeing a show Friday night.
Wow.
Some of those are comps, but that's money. But that's from a place of love, though. That's
For
a
what you
love-based
do.
because like I
See
love
art,
going to the
you wanna
fucking theater. I want
exactly.
to take in the art.
Exactly.
Love from a place of
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
taking in art, making art,
Right.
self-producing in that way.
Right.
Love in a place of like community cultivation, like
Yes.
adding again, like bringing people in, creating community. Like you can make love-based investments. Now, what would a fear-based investment look like? Again, I'm putting this money down because I could get something from it. You know what I mean? Like
I do.
getting fucking like I'll give you an example. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. Getting headshots that you don't fucking want because reps told you to get, like, oh no, you have to see this more basic person. You may love your shots, but like that's a fear-based investment. Here's what I mean by that. You shouldn't have to spend thousands of dollars to get fucking pictures that you don't even believe in or want.
Sure.
I don't care. Is it really going to make that much of a difference?
Now let me counter that with something too. I personally believe a good headshot photographer is exactly that, or a good headshot photographer. They know how to take a headshot. David Knowles, I'm just obsessed with. I think David Knowles is so good. He's probably I always go to someone new, but I think I'd go back to him again. Versus I'm going to go to my friend who will charge me $175 because I'm afraid of making the investment. And I'm just using this as an interesting counter because it is an important tool. I agree with you that reps saying you need new shots, and then
I have to do it purely to appease
and
them.
I have to do it in the next 3 weeks,
and not because look, I'm not saying that don't get your shots, but like talk to your reps, like because let me tell you what's scary. If you get new shots just because your reps, maybe that will open up well, what don't you like about my shots? Well, we think they're too duh, but I'm duh. Oh, but that's something we want to push you as. Okay, well, maybe then this opens up a whole conversation if you should be with those motherfuckers in the first place.
Sure.
So I agree with you too that it's like if you're like not gonna take, I don't deserve that investment. of like, let me go see like a really good headshot photographer because I'm not worth the investment, then that's also fear. You're right. That's also fear.
The big one for me is marketing. And I say this because there's a lot of fear around marketing. A
So
lot of
much.
fear. And I would argue, and this is why I want to do a whole episode on FOPO, fear of people's opinions, because we live in this culture, and I get it. I mean, we're all afraid. We're all fucking terrified of cancel culture, and are people going to say mean things? I mean, people comment mean shit on our TikToks, and
Because
people.
we're white. That's what they talk about, is that we're white.
Isn't that funny?
Isn't that?
Well, it's just, what it is, but I understand, because you really got to develop thick skin. But fear, but there's so much fear when it comes to marketing, because there's a question like, well, what do I have to market? So even when we work with people on working with publicists, what's the story? Like, what do I even have? That's fear that they're not worth something. There's again,
So true.
there is all this fear of like putting out content that seems inauthentic, right? Quote unquote. That idea, you should all listen to our Appearance of Authenticity episode if you haven't already, because it speaks to some of this. Um, there's fear of am I good enough? Again, that's kind of the
Yes.
same thing, as opposed to, again, kind of like with self-producing, sharing your story and your art because you believe in it. And like you're saying about, I don't change, everything else changes around me. It's not going to be for everybody. Not everyone's going to love you and like your work, and that's
Perfectionism
okay.
too. A
Perfectionism,
lot of, like you said, because it's
absolutely.
like, I'll give you a lame example. Yesterday, I was probably like, it's funny. I was like posting a lot yesterday, like stories and shit. Probably the most active I've been, because the show and it was the most natural it's ever been, because it was fun. It was joy. There was joy in it, as opposed to like, oh, I have to meet. Look, I'm not saying that calendars and content create,
Sure.
but if you are starting from zero, which I would argue I am, not no, that's not true. I'm starting from like maybe a 4
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like how good my online presence is.
Mm-hmm.
Then, and that's probably most people watching, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Let let I think the from a place of sharing your stories on socials, like that's probably phase 1 year. 1 year, post frequently from a place of joy. Why don't I screenshot this and share it to my story? You and
Mm-hmm.
I doing
Mm-hmm.
this has been fun. This has
Mm-hmm.
been awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that because I'm like, oh no, is it on brand? Is it da? Is it DTT? Is it da? Is it telling that? Which, by the way, I think
Yeah.
is important. And again,
No, but I
it's going
hear
to be
you.
imperfect.
I
I
hear
don't
you.
post enough just from a place of like, I want to say some shit. I don't post enough from a place of love and joy, because I'm afraid that, because it's perfectionism. For me, marketing is about
Well, and I
perfectionism.
and I would argue this is an interesting example of where an artist entrepreneur is different than a regular entrepreneur, because I was working with Robert earlier on the talking about how our stories need to be different anyway. We have to share our point of view,
Right.
and but it doesn't have to be so curated and careful.
It doesn't.
It really it can be
At least in the beginning. At
sure.
least in the like, because again, thinking kills ideas.
Hmm.
And so much of my problem around socials has been like, I see the ideal of what it is and I don't start.
Hmm.
I
Exactly.
don't
I'm
start.
I'm very similar. No, no. I mean, for example, for what it's worth, that is how you will get better building TikToks and Instagram Reels and even YouTube, all of that shit. Podcast. You just got to go,
You just gotta go,
and you
baby.
got to throw paint against the wall, see what sticks, learn, understand what your own voice is, and that includes. Listen, that's also what every business does from a marketing perspective. They try a strategy, they see what works, and then they
That's it.
you got to try.
See what where you gotta
It's not
again.
going to work. It's not
Joy, you know what
perfect.
joy looks like?
Me.
Me. It looks like a combo. A healthy combo of action and stillness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cause listen, you could be working like a fucking maniac, but if you have nothing to show at the end of the day, and I'm not talking about a booking, I'm talking about like a coffee with somebody, a reading, a script. If you have nothing to show at the end of the day, and like a deeper relationship, but then then you're probably not working effectively, and you probably are working from a scattered fear-based place.
Absolutely.
When you work from a place of like joy, there's like, yeah, just like, let me marketing, share my story. Let me take that. And yes, it's much deeper. We know it's much deeper. But let me start from there and let me do it happily.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so funny that the two themes for me that keep coming up in all of this, in all of what we've talked about today, joy and balance. That keeps coming up in all of this, in this whole conversation about fear and love, how to find the joy, which I would argue is synonymous with this idea of love, and then how to find a balance, because it's not all one thing. Balance is
Right.
striking a
very
balance
hard.
is and it's going to look different for everybody.
Ooh, balance is hard.
Of course, especially when you're extreme people like us. You and I are extreme people. We are all in kind of people in a lot of ways. And finding balance in anything it's a tricky balance. But
I think we got a lot.
we got a
Probably
lot.
like an hour and 45 minutes. I think.
Oh, y'all really? I'm sorry, but this is an important topic, everybody. So let's really. Wow. Sorry for the long episode, but let's do comfort food performances. Let's do our comfort food performances.
Okay, great. Oh,
What?
shit. Oh, I got my hat on. I am stoned.
Oh,
How am I stoned 24 hours later?
Well, if you had 25 is not nothing, and if you don't eat a lot of edibles, you don't get high that much.
I mean, I'm not like super high, but I'm like
No, I've been there.
until we sat down and started talking. That's when it hit me. Been awesome. It's been a great conversation. I mean, I'm taking away a lot from this.
No, me too.
This is a good episode. Okay, comfort food performance. Do you want to go first or no? Oh no, I'll go first. Fuck it.
Okay.
I might have already talked about this. I don't know if I did.
Like Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise at everything. Because I was explaining, because Carolina's stage managing a showcase production of View from the Bridge,
Uh-huh.
and I was talking about Ivo Van Hove's
Uh-huh.
version. Mark Strong, and then we watched like a couple trailers for it yesterday. And I was like watching. Mark Strong was amazing in that. Did you see that production?
I did not.
That was fucking amazing. I know Ivo Von. I think that's the only thing I've ever seen of his.
I saw his West Side.
It was an amazing. That View from the Bridge was amazing, and Mark Strong.
I wish I'd seen it. I heard nothing.
Well, you
but
know what? I want to
amazing
get
things.
National Theater at Home. Do you know the National
Oh yeah, of course.
It's there.
Oh, is it?
It's on there, I think.
I pay for so much of those fucking things.
I know, but like I do want to get National Theater Home because they have some good stuff. They
Yeah.
have the Yerma. Remember I was saying about that Yerma?
And that One Man, Two Governors, it's so good.
Yeah. But Mark Strong in that was just so. I mean, perfect performance.
Well, if you get that, I'll give you some of my logins for other shit. My comfort food performance is yours. Your performance the other day.
Nice.
Because I play the game just by strong performances. Yeah, I saw LABOD and The Assassination of Julius Caesar, as told by William Shakespeare and George Bernard Shaw at Bedlam the other day, and I really enjoyed it. And I thought you were really great. I thought it was a really interesting, subtle, but engaged and a roller coaster of a ride of performance. I was impressed with your because the whole conceit is that it's like a troupe who are rehearsing the play or the plays, so to speak, and so it sort of went in and out. And I was specifically noting like it's tricky to sort of re-engage so emotionally, but then sort of come back out of it in various ways in the worlds, and I thought it was a really dynamic performance.
Thank you. That's very nice.
That's my comfort food performance.
This was a good episode, you guys.
Yeah, so hopefully you tuned in for the whole thing.
Hopefully you subscribe to the fucking Patreon.
Oh yeah, so well listen, we're adding one more little exclusive. Patreon members who are already getting a bunch, including bonus full episodes and weekly mini episodes, 5 to 10 minutes long, with LABOD and I's thoughts of the week and some discounts on merch and working with us. Now Patreon members are also going to have exclusive early access 1 week or so, 4 or 5 days, whatever it may be, earlier to all of even the public episodes.
I would say starting when?
couple weeks.
Yes. Starting May.
But you can check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Creative Risk Podcast. Of course, like and subscribe. Your reviews really do help us. So if you
Yes.
like the show, please do review it on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We just want to hook you. We want to capture you. So do all those things. And if you hate the show, please send it to your enemies and leave your comments to yourself. We'll see you soon.
Good episode.